So I'd like to welcome NPower Canada to our meeting today. NPower is an employment training program aimed at people with barriers to employment, where they provide a free, in-demand digital professional skills training. And upon completion of the program, graduates are supported to help them connect to new and rewarding career opportunities with some of Canada's largest employers, from governments, Canada, Ontario, Nova Scotia, Alberta, BC, York, and Peel regions, to name some, to industry, Google, Microsoft, CIBC, TD, Cisco, Accenture, and more. Andrew, who's starting off the presentation, will be, he's presenting on behalf of NPower, and he is the Manager of Outreach and Admissions for NPower programs in BC. So Andrew, please go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jamal, for welcoming us here, and I'll wait for you to give us the host and co-host privileges, both myself and my colleague Jamal Brooks, who's joining us today. Jamal, thanks for sparing some time and sharing some knowledge from your experience as well. So everyone, welcome again. We're from NPower Canada, and for those of you that joined a few minutes earlier, I'll just reiterate, our goal is to help you find employment, create employment pathways, and really just help get you on your way. We know a lot of individuals are in survival jobs, maybe having trouble finding work, getting that first interview, or maybe just not enjoying their work that they're doing now and looking for some more fulfillment and a meaningful career in the future. So with that, what I'll do is I'll share my screen and walk you through some of the wonderful elements of our program. Jamal, I'll turn over to you if you want to just introduce yourself and maybe what you do in the organization, and then we can get started.
Sure. Good morning, good afternoon. I know over here it's about 1:38 in the afternoon, so greetings, everyone. My name is Jamal Brooks, team lead of Outreach and Engagement for NPower Canada, connecting with community services, community partners, youth and young adults nationwide. So we function within British Columbia, Alberta, Ontario, and Nova Scotia. So we are really just bringing awareness to jobs that are available in the tech industry, also addressing the issue of youth and young adult unemployment, and just trying to merge the two. So really enjoy what I do here. I've been here for over 2 years, growing strong. So pleasure to meet everyone, and thank you for coming out.
With that token, I got my screen activated. So who we are, we operate in supporting those young adults between the ages of 17 and 30. And with our programs, helping individuals to get to employment through digital and tech careers. What we'll cover today, and I won't make it boring, we'll try to liven it up, and would love to hear from you through questions. Jamal, if you can keep your eye on the chat there as well. But we'll give you a high overview of the program, how to get involved, and more importantly, where it leads you with wonderful careers. This screen here, I wanted to share with you. We want to really give a shout out to all of our sponsors. So all of the groups here and more are individuals and organizations who have made us able to deliver this program entirely for free to everyone that joins. So we have a limited number of seats coming up in our class on January 31st. And it has been brought to you by our sponsors who really support the mission. And more importantly, they're seeing a shortage in the workforce when it comes to the skills that we teach. So I'll repeat that. These are the employers that are coming to us saying, hey, NPower Canada, we're trying to hire folks, but there's not enough people in Canada that have these skills. So we'll work with you to train individuals, to get them ready to be connected with organizations like ourselves and many, many others.
Hey, Andrew, quick question for you. Is that an in-person or a Zoom-based event?
This is all virtual delivered. So as we are enjoying our session today, our program is delivered virtually. So pants optional, as I like to say, pajamas welcome.
That happened at home only.
Only at home only, right? Yeah.
Only
absolutely.
working from home, no pants.
Yeah. But you know, honestly, the virtual delivery has been a wonderful increase in individuals who just maybe getting out by transit or bus or car, time of day is a challenge, taking care of kids at home. You know, they have responsibilities with parents that they're looking after. So it just opens up this opportunity for so many individuals to dip into this world and get experience. And more importantly, the goal is getting a career, right? So from, you'll see later on in the presentation, I'll talk about how our graduates, more than 80% of them, are finding work after having completed our program that's a little over 90 days long. So great offering there. I'll share a quick video for you. Gotta get my screen going.
Start earlier in the stake of the training and the relationships and the pipeline development.
NPower Canada is a charitable organization that works in workforce development. We take underserved youth and we launch them into careers in the IT sector. All of our training is all directly informed by our consultation with employers, so that our students come really ready and custom trained for those jobs.
We actually spend a fair amount of time thinking about the talent we need, and so we actually shared that list with NPower, who then adjusted their program so that they would actually deliver those skills. The interns themselves bring energy, enthusiasm, diversity of thought, and frankly, hard to find skills to our organizations.
Growing up, my parents kind of pushed me to be a doctor. Unfortunately, some of my childhood friends and even family cousins ended up involved with the wrong kind of crowd and ended up passing. It really kind of took its toll on me. Eventually, I ended up dropping out. From there, I was just in a bad place. Found out about NPower, signed up. It's been probably the best experience I've ever had in my life.
The association with NPower has energized Accenture. You know, the value went both ways. This wasn't just Accenture adding value back from a corporate social responsibility perspective. We figured out that the NPower graduates who've joined us have been a very high-performing and very viable talent pool for us. Just look at the results, 90+% on employer satisfaction. So that's a great indicator that this is not just a good thing to do, it's a valuable thing to do for both parties.
We always look for young folks that have energy, have the passion, have the commitment, and we actually find the candidates that we get from NPower to display all those values. We all have a role to play, right? Like, it's for us to remove barriers, enable people to be more successful, and give them the opportunity. And you know what? I think NPower does a great job at that.
They already had the technical ability, they already had the confidence, and they already had the motivation. And I think that was evident right from the start. And you don't get that from every candidate. You don't get it from many candidates.
They're ready to go. They have the skills. They've got the professional skills and the technical skills, and they can hit the ground running. It's been a very solid fit with the organization. It's now just part of our DNA.
The results speak for themselves. I know it's a risk, but it's a risk that has a high reward. So I would say just give us a chance and we can show that we belong here.
All right, NPower. Looks like you guys are empowering your youth there. That's pretty cool.
I love it. I love it. All right, perfect. So we're back to the presentation here. Jamal, do you want to talk a little bit about their careers and some of the opportunities that are available? Because that's the goal, right? Let's get into an awesome career.
Definitely. We've been privileged to work with many different employers when it comes to the IT industry. One thing that we always like to mention to youth or young adults is that IT is not necessarily what you think it may be. Because when you hear the words IT or information and technology, everybody's mind goes to networks and motherboards and antivirus protections and VPNs and all these lofty words, when IT is literally everyday things that we use all the time. So it's cell phones, it's internets, it's anything that's smart in your household, which is pretty much basically your TV, your refrigerator, your laundry machine, your air fryer, which our manager or director loves to talk about all the time during our team meetings. But it's basically anything that consists of information and technology. And with that mindset, it does open up the field of IT much more, because it is banking. It is organizations like Shopify, CGI, and RBC, the TD banks, the EB games, the UKEN games, a lot of different positions. So when you're looking at these positions, you're looking at tech support, UX design, help desk, information security, junior IT analyst roles, as well as quality assurance analyst roles, with the ability to earn up to a very substantial salary figure when you were in an entry-level role. So you can earn up to about $41,000 per year, or $49,000 per year, or depending on the field that you're in, even higher. The average wage for NPower Canada jobs is $19.53. So applicants or candidates for the program have the ability to make that under or over, but with experience and with training through NPower Canada, it definitely grows as time goes on. And we have a lot of further training opportunities than just our initial programs that will help you get to where you're trying to go. So this slide just shows some of the examples of the positions that we get individuals into, the organizations that we do work with, and the earning ability that a participant will get into once they get through the program.
Thanks for offering that, Jamal. Great insights there. So moving along with our, our outcomes and our successes. So we've been around since 2014, and think about it, over 2,000 graduates have actually completed our programs and found employment. Here's an interesting piece, is that of that 2,200 graduates, more than half, so I'll repeat that, more than 50% of the individuals that signed up for our program had little or no IT experiences whatsoever. So I want to really share that with you to know that it's really an industry that anyone and everyone should be involved and get into. And following that as well, once you graduate, you're married to us for at least 5 years. So we have 5 years of post-grad alumni support and career services. We have individuals that come back to us after a year or 2 years and say, hey, Andrew, there's a new job at my company I want to apply for. Can you help? Or this other company just moved into town and they have some interesting positions that I'd like to apply for. Do you have any contacts there? Can you help me rebuild my resume? How do I approach them after not doing job search for a couple of years? So we're going to be here to guide them through that process. The program itself is 15 weeks long. So I mentioned starts on January 31st. And once you graduate, you'll actually not only leave with an NPower Canada diploma, but you can leave with a Google recognized certificate, Microsoft, CompTIA. So we work with a number of industry world-renowned organizations so that when you leave, you actually leave with a credential that employers recognize and that they actually have on their job postings. Program starts generally 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Students usually log in a little bit earlier just to familiarize themselves with the class, chit chat, and get started for the day. And we're always inviting employers to join our classes, to run sessions. So that gives you exposure directly with the individuals that are hiring, allows you to network, learn from their mouth exactly what they're looking for. So once you graduate, you'll be very, very educated and feel confident to go into those interviews knowing what you're talking about, knowing what the employer is looking for. So really great opportunity there. Jamal, I'll turn this one over to you.
Definitely. So one of the programs that we do offer is our entry-level program called the Junior IT Analyst program. NPower has two types of programs, one entry-level, the other more intermediate. When it comes to our entry-level programs, no experience is required. So as long as you know how to turn on a computer, type your name in the keyboard and move your mouse left to right, you are able to be in this type of program. The reason we talk about entry-level is because you are being trained to become an efficient individual within the IT sector. So within this program, we skill you with security skills, networking skills, operating system knowledge, system administration, customer service in the IT sector, as well as agile project management skills. Individuals do earn a Google IT support professional certification, and that does lead them into gainful entry-level employment.
Thanks for that, Jamal. And then the second program we have offered in BC is our Junior Data Analyst program. So this is for those individuals that have a little bit of skill, maybe some prior knowledge. Not to worry, how do I decide which program to apply for, Andrew? I did this in high school, or I did an online course, or I didn't really complete it. Choose whichever program you think is of interest when you apply. After that, we'll work with you one-on-one to make sure you're in the right class. So we definitely don't want to put you in a class that might be too hard for you, or also put you in a class that might be too slow. It'll just be just right, just like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. We'll make sure that it's going to be matching your career goals and your trajectory and how you can be successful. Jamal, I know you like that joke. You didn't like that one, the Goldilocks joke? All right, I'm going to turn it over to Jamal now. Jamal is our resident joke teller. So I know he's got a hot one on the books for us today.
Sure. Okay. So It's the only reason I bought a microphone, to tell jokes. How do you make antifreeze?
Oh, no.
You take away her blanket.
Oh, bad.
That is
Alright.
not a good joke considering how cold it is outside today, my friend. All right, so I'll move along now to our wraparound services. So once you join the program, we're not just here to give you technical skills. Like you can learn that on your own, you know, if you're confident enough. But we want to make sure you're well-rounded. So there's 3 components to the program, really, on a high level. One will give you the technical skills. Second component is we'll match you with a career coordinator. That person will help you. How do you write your resume? How do you make that first phone call for a job interview or do a follow-up email? All those kind of things that, you know, those ins and outs that no one really teaches you will help round you out. So you're not just educated in the skill, but you can actually market yourself, right? And then the third component, or the third help or support that we have in the organization, is actually in our account management team. So we have a dedicated group of staff whose job is to do nothing else but contact employers, find out their hiring needs, see what skills gaps they have in their organization. And then from there, we match job offers to individuals who are in the program about to graduate. I'll give you an example. In one of our last graduating classes that I attended in September, I was chatting with the instructor, and it was a virtual graduation, you know, everyone on the screen and, you know, playing music in the background and so forth. And he said to me, Andrew, I don't know if you realize this, but 40% of the people in the graduation on their last day of class that we're looking at on the screen right now actually have job offers in hand. So just think about that. I remember the day back when I graduated university, and it was just overwhelming. Where do I go? How do I apply? What do I do? So confused, right? Just think, 40% of the individuals in that graduating class already had a job offer. And in fact, there was a few individuals who actually started doing part-time work even before they graduated because they were well on their way of learning, and the employment demand was so high. So really, really wonderful opportunities there. Here's that quote, and I'll let you read that through. So it's just one of our individuals, and I really like this opportunity because it was an individual who came to Canada who had, you know, some ambition and some drive to achieve stuff, but just like so many others, how do I get that job? Where do I apply? Putting my resume, it's not getting any bites. So we're able to work with the individual right from zero skill, you know, as Jamal mentioned, can you move your mouse left to right? And give them the opportunity, the confidence, and the knowledge to be successful. I talked about our 5 years of graduation support, which is really wonderful. We're all here about the job. You know, the training is there, and although we teach, you don't want to look at us as an educational institution. Our goal is to help you find work. That's our end goal. That's your end goal. That's what we're here for, and that's what we want to do to support you. Jamal, I'll turn it over to you, and maybe to answer the question, after I graduate and I start working, what other supports does NPower Canada offer?
So NPower Canada is not a one-time training program where you take the training for the, whether it be for the data program or the entry-level program. We have continuous learning opportunities. So after you finish your first program and become an alumni, you are able to enter into our alumni upskilling programs. One of those programs being our Google Automation with Python program. So teaching you how to write simple Python programs, how to apply it to real world scenarios, how to configure it to certain management systems, and how to leverage it with different modules and capabilities, which also offers further certifications, which are also free of charge. We also have a program in project management, which skills individuals in how to manage projects, how to work in a very confined time spaces, and really skill them to go for their PMP designation. What this really does, and according to some of the alumni that I've spoken to earlier, it does open up more job opportunities, whether it be outside of the data program or the entry-level program, because now you have the project management experience. Now you have more experience within Python. We've also had a cloud engineering course before, which we might bring back in the future, but there's a lot of different opportunities to upskill. So it doesn't just end with your first program, it's continuous learning that NPower Canada does provide.
Thanks so much for that, Jamal. And just one last quote or testimonial from one of our individuals. And actually, as I've come to learn, we have to update this slide because the individual has gone on to get a promotion and work in a higher role now. So just speaking to the opportunity that's there, we're even behind on the success of our testimonials that you're seeing and I'm sharing with you today. So I want to just draw your attention to this last sentence that Dagmar shared is just to anyone considering the program, I urge you to go for it. Application is free, there's no charge. It takes about 8 to 10 minutes to complete the form. And best case scenario, you're accepted and you start a program that's only 90 days plus in length, virtual from your home and free. Worst case scenario, maybe you decide it's not for you, but in that decision, it might bring you closer to something that you do find meaningful in your life. That's an opportunity to move forward in your career. So with eligibility, what do I need to get in, Andrew? So as long as you're between the ages of 17 to 30, you have your high school diploma or GED, and BC also the adult dogwood. If you're unemployed or underemployed, or even if you're working full-time in a job that is just paying the bills, a survival job, and as long as you can do the class hours that we have, the Monday to Friday 9 to 1, then we would consider your application as well, because it's not just about finding the job, it's about getting the career, right? Like, what's going to be the thing that gives you that fulfillment, salary, support in the future? Like, those are going to be the key things. For the newcomers to Canada, if you have the CLB of 7, we don't ask for the document, and during the interview process, in that conversation, maybe if you haven't done the test, we'll be able to guide you on your ability to be successful in the program, or might recommend taking some time off and doing a little bit more English upgrading before you start. We're just here to help you and make sure that you can actually be successful. And we definitely encourage everyone from all walks of life, background, skill level, what have you, to apply. The workplace is diverse, and just like in our classrooms, we want to have a good, strong balance of everything that's reflective in the environment. So these are the key things that are important to us. With that being said, we're just coming towards the end of the presentation here, just the stock part of it. So the program starts in end of January, and we'll be here to support you. I will be able to hand over the microphone to Jamal now, that will be able to answer any questions and guide you on next steps on the application, how to continue. I do have to pop out for another meeting with a client who has some interest in applying and really had some really important questions that I wanted to be there and support her in her journey. So Jamal, if I could turn it over to you, would that be all right?
Thanks. Can I pop in here for 1 second? Thanks, Andrew, so much. And thanks to you and Jamal for taking the fright factor away from anyone who doesn't have the prior IT experience, and for explaining how comprehensive that field is. And also for telling us about the NPower's ongoing supports and education.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jamal, can I start this off with a question from that was presented to me before? Thanks, Andrew. Was presented to me before the meeting. This is from Chafin, and he can step in at one point. This is about the eligibility, the GED eligibility requirement. Yeah. And as these programs are about removing barriers to employment, we don't want to any situations. We are not looking for any situations that add another barrier, right? And our objective is to make procedures as person-centered and inclusive as possible, recognizing that people come from different life experiences. So what I'm asking is, could it not be possible to interview in special situations, to interview individuals and test them in the interview situation, or by giving them applications to demonstrate their capability or their aptitude or their capability for this education opportunity, rather than the GED? people might have homeschooled, for example, or whatever. And so that's one. And I've run across these other barriers where well-intentioned programs sometimes inadvertently or by their funding restrictions end up creating a barrier. So the diagnosis is another one. Some programs require a formal diagnosis. So with that, Jamal, I'll let you answer, and maybe Shafin can step in when he's ready.
Yeah, that's a really good question. For us, unfortunately, it is a funding requirement. Also a requirement for our employers that it is a GED or a high school diploma at minimum. Andrew and the recruitment team has been trying to figure out ways around this. It wouldn't happen so soon as our January cohort, but we're hopefully looking towards the May or September cohort where we're able to figure out a plan to circumvent the need of a GED or a high school diploma. Because we do understand that a lot of individuals may not have that, but that shouldn't negate them from entering into full-time gainful employment. So we are looking at those as possibilities, but that is what their admission requirements are.
So Jamal, if you can think of ways in which we could support that initiative by putting a case forward, please let us know, because we really, as I said, want to make sure that these opportunities are fulfilling their mandate to be inclusive and open. And there are other ways other than these obvious criteria to test for aptitude and motivation to be part of these programs.
Definitely. And I've seen that Shafin, if I pronounced that correctly, has stated that Apple and Google have announced that 25% of new hires do not require any kind of degree, which that's great. That is something that we can definitely bring up. I know from the standpoint of the admissions process, it's a little bit blanketed based on everybody for criteria. But again, that is something that we are going to be looking into. That is something I'll actually mention to Andrew as well as our director to see if that's something that we can look at when it comes to our admissions process.
Okay. And like I said, if you see ways in which we might be able to help support that initiative, we'd be happy to do so.
Yeah. So honestly speaking, I would say the best thing is a formal agency letter. Like most of the times when we do have those questions or comments, it comes from potential participants, where most of the times it's just, that's the admissions process. But when it comes from actual agency who's looking to work on it with NPower Canada, I feel that carries a little bit more weight. So if that is something that can be done, we'd love to do it. We'd love to have it, and we'd love to present it as best as possible.
Okay, perhaps Shafin, you can contact me and we can put together a letter and put it forward. Any questions from anyone else?
Yeah, an off question. Does the program pay out bonuses at all, like for the students attending or for achieving milestones, or is it more just the training that they achieve in the milestone?
It's more just the training.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to pay out any bonuses for the students. But what we do is cover all the costs of certifications. So any certification that they do receive within the duration of the program is covered by NPower Canada. So at no point are they paying anything throughout the training. As well as if they don't have a laptop or working internet, we also loan those out so they can.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Jamal. That helps.
Lorraine, did you know question?
Yeah, I have a question. With your participants, have you ever had a situation where there have been difficulties with social skills, communication? And if so, what do you do about it?
Yeah, so we have had quite a bit. But what we do is we have social workers in the classroom. Their actual technical title is career coordinators, and they create individualized education plans. So throughout the week, they meet with the individual and create plans on learning, create plans on integrating with the rest of the classroom, and making them fully comfortable in reaching and attaining their targets. So if they do face a little bit of social skills, then in the virtual world, we can move in towards a breakout room work on those one-to-one skills and see how we can reintegrate them within the classroom. So taking a one-to-one approach as much as possible is what we try to do.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions before we move on to Cave?
I do have a technical question. You might not totally know this. If, for example, Jamal, we sent you a student from CAVE that had graduated CAVE but needed the technological component to get a job, do you receive funding from the government, and are we cross-funding if we sent someone to your program and they were already in our program?
So for NPower Canada, there is no funding conflicts.
Okay,
the majority of our
awesome.
funding is corporate funding. Like, we do receive the government funding, but the majority of it is corporate, so there's no conflict when it comes to that.
I love it. I could see, Jamal, about half of our students being a good fit down the road for something like this. So this is exciting for us.
Great.
That's awesome.
Okay, with no, thank you, Jamal. We'll move on to Cave at this point then. Thank you so much.
All
That's
right.
really informative. Whereas NPower is a more specific IT training, CAVE is a 5-week online, more generalized online employment training program offered through Douglas College and funded by governments of Canada and BC. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. It's partly by the funder, partly by the students attending as well. So it's a combination of funding services.
I just want to give a general overview. It's open to un- or underemployed individuals between the ages of 17 and 29. And your next intake begins January 10th, 2022. And Chris, say hi. And
hello, I'm Chris over here.
He's the program facilitator. And your new job developer is
right over here, Sasha.
Sasha, hi Sasha.
Yeah.
And you're part of the CAVE Youth Employment Group from the Douglas College Training Group.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
and Joanne, this is Matthew here in the front.
Great.
He's our part-time job developer. All right. Okay, can you see that okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, cool. So this is our general, the CAVE Youth Employment Program has actually been around since, I correct me if I'm not, 1997. And it was a literal storefront with a cave. It was built to look like a cave. So when the youth would go in, they thought they were going into this cool cave, and it felt unique and different. So that's the origin of the CAVE program. And then it moved to Douglas College and it became a more official program. So we've been operating for quite a long time. We serve youth from the ages of 17 to 29. Let's see, as you mentioned, Joette, it's 5 weeks of in-class training. And then we actually have the 6th week of training is 4 really important trainings. We have a company coming in to do infectious disease control training, barista training to work at a coffee shop, cashier training, and customer service training. Our young people get certificates in all of those, for all of those trainings, which often get them points of employment just from those trainings. We have professionals coming in to give them their rights in the workplace. It's a company called Alive After 5. And we also have the International Trade Association coming and talking about jobs and trades. The CAVE here, let me show you our info sheet to show you a little bit more of the information. So it's up to 12 weeks. We start job searching with our young people right away. So while there is 5 weeks of training, while we're in training, our job developers are already looking for opportunities for our young people. And I noticed lately the job market is really hot. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, but there are a lot of job positions. However, we noticed that there are a lot of employers that can be very high stress and high demand. So at the same time, we try to find appropriate fits for each one of our students. Typically, our students are multi-barriered individuals. Often they have a barrier to learning, a barrier to understanding where to find work. Some of them have not worked at all, the ones that are younger, 17, 18. Some of them have anxiety, depression, stress. We got a lot of stuff going on with our young people. So we gently navigate them through the program and help them find a place where they feel comfortable. So just so everyone knows, the CAVE program used to be 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. in our Burnaby office right here. but we've noticed that about 90% of our young people prefer online because of anxiety, because of other things, or just ease of access. They don't have to come here at 9 a.m. So now the K program is 10 a.m. to 12:30. This is 2.5 hours. And we have mild homework for our young people. It's all employment related homework. Did I answer everything there, Matthew?
I think so.
I think I covered everything on my portion. So 5 weeks of training. The 6th week, they actually get 4 training certificates with no testing. So we realized that after 5 weeks in K program, they have done a lot of brain work and a lot of homework and assignments. They don't want any more assignments or homework. So the 4 days of training are just attending class, and then they get the certificate at the end. That takes us to Matthew.
Yes.
Sasha and Shanice, who is not here. She's out at the mall today with one of our young people, helping them find a job in one of the places they like to work. But job development leads us to Matthew here. Can you talk about the process?
So absolutely. So Chris's portion of the program basically focuses on the facilitation and getting them prepared for the job market. So this would involve things doing personality dimension training, figuring out what types of industries they want to go into, addressing mental health, and finding out what the barriers are of each individual and figuring out where we can try and find points of employment. And this is where Sasha and myself and Shanice come in. This is where the 12 weeks of job search come into play, where we try and utilize the skills that they've developed under Chris's part of the program, and we get them to go out and try and find positions. So ideally, what our job is to do is to look at their previous work experience, looking at their personality dimensions, and looking at their resume cover letters to figure out what would be a good point of employment for them. For a lot of these youth, a lot of them are just starting off in the job market and have never had a job before. So a lot of the times it's just about finding them that simple first job to get them their confidence up and to figure out what would be a really good place for them to work, where they can gain some really good skills, but then also not have too much stress on their hands and be held back too much based on the type of job that they're going to be getting. So we don't want to put them in points of employment that are going to be way too difficult for them to handle. Part of our job also is to really identify what barriers are preventing the individuals from getting those jobs. Right now, we work with a wide variety of different individuals. Many of them have learning disabilities. Many of them have had issues with housing. Some of them come from broken families and have come from places of abuse. So we have to try and find ways to alleviate some of those barriers. So in our part of the program, if we see any major barriers, so for instance, some students have a hard time finding transport to get to the jobs that they want. What we can sometimes provide are transit cards or a compass card to them, so that way they can have that transit to get to and from work and to get home after. So that way it just takes away a barrier for them, so that way they're able to get to their job no problem. That's one of them. In addition, we're finding that mental health right now is probably the most significant barrier among all the youth. With the pandemic really, in fact, affecting our lives, it has affected our mental health as well as a whole, and that we have really seen this prevalent among all the youth. So our program is going to be designed now to really facilitate and understand the importance of taking care of ourselves mentally and providing counseling if ever needed. So if we find that a student is so mentally exhausted and so stressed and so anxious that they can't even go get a job, we will recommend counseling to them. And most of the times they are very open to those kinds of ideas. So that way they can get the help that they need and then go find the jobs that they want to find after. In addition, we do have additional training if they want to go into specific fields. For example, we do have administrative training that is available if they want to go work in an office or they want to work in filing. We have trainings and things like that that we can provide to students to help them find those positions.
Let me jump in, Matthew. So I'll expand upon what Matthew was saying. Douglas College has been ever so kind to actually put funding towards counseling services. So our young people can access as much as 4 separate counseling sessions from a very reputable organization here in Vancouver. And as Matthew was saying, previous to the pandemic, we didn't get too many people interested in that service. Now we're getting a lot more students saying that they need coping strategies for life, not just to get to work, but to show up at my class every day, to feel okay about being alive each day, to feel okay about hope for their future. A lot of our young people have lost hope for their future. And so part of what we try to do is give them hope that there's a cool job out there, that they could move ahead if they engaged more. Staying at home is not healthy. Getting out and doing more is healthy and can move them forward. So if we can do that for our young people, this is part of what we help support them in.
Absolutely. 100%. But mostly what we focus on at the end of it is trying to find them those points of employment.
Yeah.
So usually this involves myself, Sasha and Shanice, and sometimes Chris as well, going actually out to employers and meeting them in person, trying to develop those relationships with the employers to say, hey, listen, if we have any students or any job postings that are available, let us know. And then we will see if we have any students that would be a good fit for those job postings, right? We want to make sure that we're in touch with the employers when the students get employed. So that way we can try and help maintain that level of employment. So that way it's not just like a quick one and done job. It's that they're there. And that if there's ever any issues, that the employers can feel comfortable coming to us and we can help try and address those issues and try and help the student move forward and improve their job skills in those positions.
So as well to this, part of the attraction to the CAVE program for our young people is we offer $650 in bonuses. So the first bonus typically would come if they show attendance. So roughly 2 weeks into the program, if they have good attendance, which is not hard because it's online, they get their first bonus payout. The second bonus comes after they submit to Matthew or Shanice or Sasha their first pay stub from their job, proving that they have passed their you know, they got a job, they have their first pay stub. The third bonus comes when they have passed probation. So that's why, as Matthew was saying, we're motivated to help them stay at the place we find them work. Often it's an employer that gets where they're coming from, and often it's a situation where they'll take a little longer to train the youth, and that's good for us because then it keeps our youth in a long-term point of employment. We've had some young people in previous cohorts that are still working 2 years later at the place we found for them because it was a good fit and it was an employer that didn't demand too much of our young people, but worked within their capacity. So that's where we kind of specialize with the job developers, is finding placements that are appropriate for each person.
Yeah. In addition, my part of the program, so the part that Sasha and I are going to be running, it's all done online as well. However, we are also open to trying to encourage the youth to come in person if they want to. I have met some of the youth who have said that they like to meet in person because it tends to have a better effect on their ability to learn. So if it's ever possible, we try and get them to come here so that way we can practice with them. In particular, our part of the program really works to try and help them find those applications to go, or those job postings to apply to. And then part of our job is also really working on their interview skills to make sure that they're adequately prepared to answer interview questions. Yeah. So for many of our students, this can be a very stressful time because a lot of them have a barrier of social anxiety, especially, and that can make it a lot more difficult for them to do the interviews. So part of that is just doing lots and lots of practice with them during the interview process, so that way they're adequately prepared to answer the interviews properly and to give them the coping mechanisms to reduce their anxiety before any interviews ever happen. So it's really important that we are always maintaining those points of contact with the youth, not just like before they're getting employed, but during their employment as well. Yeah. Our second bonus that Chris was mentioning comes after they complete the second stage of the program, which is the 12 weeks of job search. So after they get employed, we need to get their employee information along with their first pay stub, and that is proof enough to show that they are working at their new point of employment. After they give us all that information, they get their second bonus. And then we keep tabs on them for 3 months as they're working, as it would be their probationary period that they're working through. So this would be an opportunity for us to maintain contact, always catching up with them, making sure that everything is going well at the work, making sure that they're safe and that their rights are being taken care of. We want to make sure that our students are able to work in a good environment, and we want to make sure first and foremost that they're safe going to work, because that is at the utmost importance of this program. Mm-hmm. And it's also important that if the employers have any issues, that they can come reach out to us, so that way we can talk to the students and say, hey, okay, this is where the employer is looking for you to improve. Let's see what we can do here to help you move forward. Mm-hmm. After they complete 3 months of completed work, which would lead to the end of their probationary period, they would get their final bonus. And their total bonuses total up to $650 as an enticement to get them to complete this program.
Thank you, Matthew. I'll add to that. Now, it doesn't always have to be a point of employment. This is why I'm excited about NPower, because some of our students need more training and they don't want to go right into work. So we have a component of our program where students could go into schooling or even volunteering. We prefer, like 90% prefer that they seek a point of employment because it's better for mental health. But we noticed that volunteering is still great for mental health and can be done in a casual capacity if they're into that. Or some of them are actually wanting to upgrade their skills and go to school. And that's part of our intervention program, is to help them find schooling or additional training options, like with Jamal through NPower. So that could be interesting too. We're excited about that.
Yeah, and sometimes volunteer work ends up being a more preferable option for some of our students as well, because a lot of them haven't really had a lot of work experience or volunteer experience in general to get them into any job position. So sometimes it makes more sense to get them into that volunteer role where they can develop some really good skills and then jettison that to their next job moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think we pretty much covered everything. Joette, did anyone have any questions whatsoever about the program, the ins and outs?
Any questions? I wanted to ask, how much, or what are we talking about in terms of time frame for contact? So in the first 5 weeks, how much of a time commitment is that? And then in the subsequent 12 weeks, how much contact do you have with each individual who's in the program?
Good question. I'll start the first portion, and Matthew can do the second portion. So that's a really, really good question. A lot of our young people would like a slightly less engaged so that they could have more free time. But I tell them, well, when you are doing a job search, it's your full-time job. So we used to have it Monday through Friday, but we realized that was a bit too much for our young people. So we've lowered it to Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 12:30 online on a Blackboard link for Douglas College. After that, we have on the heavier days an hour's worth of homework assignments. On the lighter days, no homework assignments, because I do the homework in class. I try to do as much as I can in class, but we used to have 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So there was a lot more time to work with the young people. So as you can imagine, a 29-year-old is going to be at a very different pace than a 17-year-old. So I have to do some pretty severe follow-up work at the end of the day. Those that don't get the material, which is honestly pretty straightforward material, I will sit down with them one-to-one after class, and I will go over it to as much explanation as they need to get it. It's not complex material. For example, on day 2 of the program, we have essential skills assessment. And then we do a post-assessment at the very end of the program to show the students where their skills have grown. It's a little tough because you have to go online, you have to log in with a password, you have to do a pre-test to get to your main test. That can be confusing for some people. So often I've had them share a screen with me while I'm doing office work, and they do their homework with me, and I help them along as they needed. So overall time commitment for the 5 weeks, I would say, is roughly 2.5 to 3.5 hours per day, Monday through Thursday. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. And then Matthew.
Yeah, and then for my portion of the program, this is the job search program, and a lot of this has to come from like their own personal work that they do with it. However, what I will do is I will always try and schedule at least one meeting with each of the individuals. So we usually split this between all the job developers. We each take a couple of different participants in the cohort, and we work with them. So I'll try and set up meetings with them at least once a week, at least to get a catch up to see, okay, how are things going? Have you applied to these positions? Have you gotten any offers for an interview? Those sort of questions that I have to ask in general. So I want to get at least one of those meetings a week. We used to do whole classes about job searching. However, we found that like a lot of them sometimes wouldn't come onto it because they would be applying for their jobs. So I would honestly prefer to just work one-on-one with them personally, because each student is so different and has different needs that each of them need to be addressed in a different way. So sometimes addressing them as a full class isn't the most effective way during the job search. It's more effective to do it one-on-one. Mm-hmm. So, and then depending on like how active they are, if they're super active in their job search and they have like 2 interviews in a week, I'll spend like a little bit more time with them that week just to make sure that they're extra prepared for that interview versus somebody who may have only gotten who didn't apply to as many positions, right? So the more positions that they apply to, it's easier for me to spend more time with those individuals. The less that they apply to, it's a little bit harder, but my goal is to always try and engage them and at least get one meeting a week. So that way I'm just up to date on everything that's going on with their application process.
And Joette, so what we do is even on the first several days of the program, we bring our job developers into the Zoom meetings or the Blackboard meetings so that the students get familiar and comfortable with our job developers. Often they'll present a hot job at the beginning of the morning. Hey, there's this hot job, and one of the person's interested and they may start applying for it later that day. So we try to make it a very proactive. We don't want them to wait till the end of the 5 weeks to start applying for work. We want them to start applying. We'll even follow up on previous employers they've connected to before joining the program to see if there's opportunity. So ultimately, diminishment of stress is our key goal in the KID program, and then getting them through each stage.
Yeah. I'll also say that once they're employed, I'll try and reach out to them like once every 3 weeks, just because they won't need as much points of contact once they're employed. But it's good just to have that quick say, hey, how's everything kind of going at the job? Is there any concerns that you're having? Just so that way we're aware if anything ever comes up.
Okay. And that bonus that's paid out after probation is reached, that's usually about what, 6 months or?
3 months is the probationary period.
Okay.
So after 5 weeks, after their 5 weeks completion, that's one bonus, which I believe is $200. After they get employed through my portion and Sasha's portion, that's going to be $150 bonus. And then after they complete the final stages, I believe that is 250 is the final bonus.
Okay. And you said that you start off by trying to identify barriers to employment, like what's causing the problem in the first place. And you identified housing and mental health. And you mentioned that you're through Douglas College, you have access to 4 counseling sessions. Really glad that's there, but it's not very much. And I'm just,
I know.
You know, as you well probably know, that the first session is usually used up getting to know what the concerns are.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it, you know, it's not a very long period of time to deal with entrenched mental health issues. So again, wondering what happens after that. But and then also in terms of housing, if you've
sorry, we were discussing what we do have a strategy for you. Go ahead, Sasha.
Okay, and then just the other question was, if housing is identified as a barrier, what connections do you have, or what have you used in the past to connect people to housing?
You can start with the mental health part
you
first.
guys can definitely add on, because I'm fairly new to the process, but my understanding is that we are able to help get potential students connected with outside resources. So if there are barriers that we can't specifically address here, there are, especially here in the Lower Mainland, there is a plethora of resources that we can help connect to and get them kind of associated with that, because obviously we have some limitations as to how much we can help, particularly with mental health resources, but there are a lot of other resources out there that they might not be able to navigate that system well enough to get connected to. So that is something that we can do for them. Because as you mentioned, entrenchment is a long process to kind of get through, and 4 sessions is not going to be enough to kind of start getting into the meat of where that comes from or what the challenges are there and how to navigate that. But the 4 sessions are particularly helpful for short-term management of strategies and skills to build into like daily life. It might not go through, you know, breaking down traumas and things like that, but it will kind of give some daily supports that they can kind of implement into their now.
Right.
In addition to that, we will be having we'll be having the same counselors that we have at Juniper coming in and actually during Chris's sessions to try and work on mental health, to put that out there to the students that it's okay to work on these things, that it's okay to admit that we all go through stress, we all go through an anxiety, and to give them some of those tools right away to help address those current issues that they're having. So we're trying to make that much more of a priority moving forward, as we are just finding that every single one of the case students who's coming through us is going through some level of anxiety and depression. So it's really important that we address that right away. When it comes to housing, we do have funding within our program to make it happen. I can't say exactly where it comes from, but we can provide, because I don't have the budgetary side of that. However, we will be willing to like help pay for rent in some cases for some students if they're going to have trouble making that last payment because they're running out of their savings, right? So we do have those resources available to help pay for them. We do refer to social housing sometimes based on it, to my knowledge, but to my knowledge, but we can always look into it more and get back to you with more information.
So thank you, Matthew. So to add to that, Joette, we So the reason that we had only 4 counseling sessions is because our young people often never wanted more than 4 sessions. If somebody needs more than 4 sessions, Douglas College is very good about accommodating and will offer and add. And this just because most of our young people don't request it and haven't been using this service, but now they are. So one new thing we're doing in our next cohort is, as Matthew was saying, we're going to bring Juniper in to actually talk, to give a general overview of mental health to our young people, and then to offer them the support if they wanted it. And they'll put a face to a name and they'll be more familiar with that. In addition to that, just so everyone here knows, if you have single moms that need childcare supports, we can do that. If, as Matthew said, housing supports, again, it's on a one-to-one basis, but Douglas College has a lot of resources, thank goodness. So if more supports are needed and the young people want them, we have a lot of ability to offer. We even have computers we can lend out. We have a lot of resources to help our young people.
It's obviously one wants to get to first base and get people employed. But what we also see is that there's a lot of programs now that weren't 5 years ago, 3 years ago, that are offering employment preparedness and are understanding that these other components such as mental health and housing and things like that need to be included. But then we want to think about retention, and that's the next layer. And so I'm kind of wondering, how long do these supports go on? Can they contact people who once they've been in the program? Are there people that they can reach out to? Can they get help with resolving their problems within anything that may come up within the job placement? Those kinds of
absolutely, Joanne. I'll briefly mention that our CAVE students can stay with us for 2 years. We've had some students that are on their 3rd career with us because they came back and said, hey, I learned all I could learn at that job. Could you help me get another job? And of course, our job developers are thrilled to have CAVE students come back for their next step up in the career. So we offer up to 2 years of additional supports. If they need weekly support and they've already been employed, we'll still make a way to offer them supports just to have that point of connection if that's what they need. Matthew, anything additional to
No, that's about it. Yeah, we have them for 2 years. So if they ever have any more questions or anything related to finding new jobs moving forward, we're always here to help them no matter what.
In addition, Joette, they can come back to the CAVE Douglas College program if they forgot anything about employment, jump back into my workshop with pre-permission, of course, and I can retrain at any point if they need retraining, if they want to refresh their 4 trainings at the end, they can come back and do that as well. So we will always take back our young people. The only time we cannot keep working with them is once they turn 30, and then they time out of the program.
Okay. I should mention as well that 12 weeks at the end, that kind of marker that we're looking for, sometimes kids or youth, they go into a job and they are there for 2 or 3 weeks and it just doesn't work out for them for whatever reason, or maybe they've come across a barrier and that barrier became too much in that moment. That 12 weeks doesn't need to be specifically 12 consecutive weeks. If they do 3 weeks at one employer and it just doesn't work out, and maybe they have another 3 weeks where they're like, oh shoot, I can't find a job, or I need to deal with this hurdle in my life, and then they get another employment, we just kind of stick those weeks together. It just needs to be a 12 weeks of total, and they do technically have until that 2-year marker to come back to us. So say they had something happen in a year and a half, they're like, hey, I got all my 12 weeks in through these 3 employers, and they can provide the pay stubs to go with it. They're still eligible to get that bonus as well. It just has to be a collective of those 12 weeks so we can kind of work around the barriers that sometimes come up and life happens. And as we know, things sometimes come in the way and we can't help that. So we work around that and we can collectively pull those 12 weeks together for that employment period as well. So they're not like, oh shoot, I'm done at 12 weeks, I got to start all over again. They can tack it together, which is a nice incentive for them.
Okay, great. I also see that it sounds to me like you work a lot with the individuals trying to assess out what their skills and interests are and moving them to employment. I'm wondering to what extent you work from the other side with employers who might be open to hiring inclusively, and to develop a roster of prospective employers? Do you work from that end as well, or how do you?
Well, what I mostly have been doing is mostly going to the actual employers themselves and reaching out personally. So reaching out to them, talking to them about the program, sharing business cards, exchanging information, and just letting them know that this employment program is available and that we provide certain trainings. In particular, retailers really love infectious disease control, customer service, and cashier training. Things that are all super, super useful for any student going into any job market who are just looking to get into it. That would be like a really good start. In addition, we do also have a wage subsidy program, which provides 50% off of minimum wage. So here in BC, that's $7.50 an hour, I believe. So we do provide a wage subsidy for students if they are really, really struggling. Ideally, we don't really use it very often because we try and get the students those points of employment as soon as possible. But sometimes we'll talk to an employer and an employer will be open to that idea of having that wage subsidy. Sometimes it involves like meeting them in person, setting up meetings with them to let them know what our program is. More recently, we've had an individual in our program going into a volunteer program that is providing podcasting and getting him into that kind of sphere and getting him to learn new technology on how to switch cameras, doing sound checks, those sort of things that wouldn't really be provided. But since this employer is very open to giving training to those who are in need of that training and those who are barriered, might be able to get some really good experience there as well. So a lot of the times it's about reaching out to those right employers, maintaining those connections, really emphasizing the importance of helping those who are barriered and helping those who really need that extra support and training.
Okay, I've asked all my questions. Anyone else?
Oh, so I'm so glad you had so many.
Okay, I think we're good.
Awesome.
Thank you, CAVE and NPower for your participation today. And I really hope to hear from you and hope that you are able to fill your programs with interested and enthusiastic applicants.
Thank you, Joanne. Joanne, I did forget to mention that the application process is as simple as emailing the cave@douglascollege.ca.
Put it in the chat.
I'll put it in the chat and requesting a registration form, and then we follow up from there.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
I'll put that into the our posting as well as NPower's contact information. Okay, thank you all. We'll talk again.